and I was a sociology major and a psychology major, double major. Like I was pretty worldly, but like it just didn't dawn on me. Like I just never put two and two together
He
because
hid it well.
like I loved him so much. It didn't, I didn't even care. Like I was just like, whatever.
Was he hiding it?
He was, but he wasn't because. So anyhow, he lived with this other man for years, and in hindsight, it's like watching the movie The Usual Suspects, right? Like all the clues were there, and I was like, "What the fuck? Like, how did I not notice this kind of thing?" Right? But I'd always been like, I'd had friends who were gay, lesbian, stuff like that, but I'd always been, kind of a, I wouldn't say protector because nobody in like the small towns where I lived were, overly aggressively, prejudiced.
Homophobic.
And yeah, anyone really. I mean, the F word was dropped a million times growing up because of lack of knowledge, stuff like that in our community. But we knew people who were homosexual, but we didn't, like, it wasn't like, oh, get away from me kind of thing, right? Like my mom had a friend who was, and it was just like, whatever. But as I got older and moved to Alberta, I mean, obviously I saw a little switch in accepting like the level of acceptance, right?
Just and a little?
Yeah, but like 0 to 10,000 on the meter. But as I saw like those little cheap shots and things like that, I would start dialing up my sort of backlash towards it. Right?
Yeah. I think for me, like what I tend to do is I match energy with people, right? So I'm kind of like you in the sense that if you come at me with some like ridiculous amounts of hate, I'm not trying to convince you of anything. You've shown me who you are, and I'm not wasting my time. What I was trying to say is people that have genuine questions and just want to talk about stuff, I'm more than happy to do that. But if you think you're going to come to my face and just berate me and I'm just gonna sit there and take it, you have something coming. That's not happening.
Well, it's so what I find is one focal arguing point, like one main arguing point is parades. So anytime there's a parade, people just have an issue with LGBTQ, like it's like, no.
Yeah.
Why the parade? So I was talking to one of my lifelong friends, like known him my whole life, and he's like, why the hell do they need a parade? And I'm like, well, first of all, what are you, people aliens? Like, what are you talking about, man? And he's like, what do you care? And I'm like, well, I know lots of, gay people. My uncle's gay. He's like my hero. Like, what are you running your mouth for? And the other thing I find is a lot of times with this, these prejudicial statements, they're saying them, but they don't live them. So like, you'll have somebody saying shit about like, and it's not just, this group, like any group, like racial comments, whatever else. And it's kind of like they're just saying it. They're not living it. So it's not like they're out putting on a hood, going being racist, because then it'll be like, say something about somebody who's homosexual and then be having drinks with them at their house. And I'm like, why are you doing that? So that's where I think what you're talking about, where the, the ignorance comes in and like the kind of the curiosity. But, if you got these like tough and hard, straight males, if they ask a question about, people being homosexual or lesbian, then it might like rub off on them, like, oh, look out, so they're very closed-minded when it comes to learning about it. But for me, because my uncle Ted was so awesome and I loved him so much, I'm like on the attack, like as soon as, so like my buddy was like, well, why do they need a parade? And I'm like, well, the reason why they're, for me, like one reason, why they need a parade is, they get to express themselves because they weren't able to do so for so long freely, right? And he's like, yeah, so what? I'm like, he's like, it's not that bad. And I'm like, no, I'm only giving that like crappy accent to accentuate how pissed off I was at him at the time. He doesn't really talk like Rocky, right? So I'm like, well, here's a question for you, bud. I was like, you and your wife, have you guys ever been walking down the road and gotten the ever-loving shit kicked out of you for holding hands? And he's like, well, no. I was like, now, if that was to happen, like say you guys, back in the day, because we grew up together, right? I'm like, so back in the day, you guys are walking down the beach holding hands, and a bunch of bunch of guys jump out of a car and beat the shit out of the both of you, like put you in the hospital level pounding. I go, and the reason they're doing that, the only reason is because you're holding hands and you love each other. I was like, what do you think we would do back then? Would we go find the guys, maybe kick their ass, be pissed off at them? He's like, well, yeah. And I'm like, well, here you go, dummy. Like,
to touch on your parade point for a little, just real quick too, like people don't realize that it's a parade today. It started as a protest, first of all. But second of all, straight people have tons of fucking parades. So what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Right? They have Mardi Gras where they're fucking showing their tits and throwing out beads to everybody. They have their kids there. There's no issue. But the minute there's a pride parade, somebody's got issues.
Yep. It's like
enough with the hypocrisy.
I know. I'm
Macy's
just so
Day Parade, right? Christmas time. But parades exist, guys. Get over it.
Thanksgiving,
exactly.
St. Patty's, Easter, like Remembrance Day. There's a parade for everything under the sun. But if it's somebody trying to promote, see, my whole thing is, and also to me, pride parades are very symbolic of not giving a shit. You know what I mean? Like just living life to the fullest and like being happy. No matter what. But a lot of people just cannot embrace happiness and letting go of all the bullshit, right? And I think that kind of freedom is threatening to people who don't have, the cojones to go and do a parade for whatever the hell they believe in, or a protest.
And I'll be honest with you, there's a mental health aspect to it for me as a gay man. When I'm walking through the parade with my family, with my husband and our son, and I see people in support of us, like that fills me for the year to come. So whenever shit goes down, I'm able to look back and think about those moments like, although this feels really hard right now, this happens too all the time, and people do have that support and they do have my back. So there's a sense of there is a huge benefit to pride parades and your mental health if you're part of the community.
Yeah, and it doesn't take away anything from anyone else is the thing, right? So
exactly,
there's no, there's no negative after it. You're not depleting resources of, it's just so stupid. But again, it goes back to not being able to just let go and live your life and have fun. Which, as we know, some people just can't let shit go and just go, okay, that crowd is having their own party, doing their own thing, rock and roll. Like this group is doing their own thing, who cares? And then that's when we get into this, conflicting shit, because these people just can't mind their own business and can't, come to grips with their own happiness. Like what makes you happy? Because if you're wasting your time being pissed off about rainbow crosswalks, then I got a feeling you're not happy in your life, because if you're happy, you don't give a shit what anybody else is doing. I'm sorry. You're just like,
right.
People call it eccentric, but really I think back in the day, those eccentric people, quote unquote, were they reached that point of, I don't give a shit what's going on. I don't care what other people think. I'm going to live my life the way I want. If I want to wear the same shirt every single day until it falls off my back, I'm going to do it. And those people we've always seen as eccentric weirdos kind of thing, right? But I think that they just reached that, that pinnacle of who cares and happiness, because there's a lot of freedom when you do not care about what anyone thinks about you, and you can find whatever it makes you happy, and you focus on that, and you don't, like, outside influences aren't impacting your attainment and your preservation of that. Then people just can't deal with that. They're like, what do you mean you're going to do this? Like, you have to do it this, you got to go to college, you got to get a job, you have to do it the certain way, right? But yeah, I just get so pissed off sometimes. I'm just like, all right, I got to shut up because I'm going to punch my friend in the head for being stupid right now.
Yep, I hear you.
But yeah, I just wanted to drop in and say that.
May I recommend throw
I sent you a
punches
follow.
instead? May I recommend
Yeah,
throw punches instead?
and
Throw punches work.
drop kicks.
I just
You
want
won't
to
break
hurt
your
you
hand.
for a second,
But-
I don't
Yeah,
wanna
but
do
you won't
that.
break
Yeah.
your hand.
Like a
We're
good
worried
shin
about your
squint.
hand.
Yeah. No, I appreciate you. Thanks for coming up. That was really sweet of you to say, and I appreciate that perspective.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Of
Have
course.
a great day, Keith.
I sent you a follow.
You too. Tap, tap, tap. Share the live.
Progressive. Moosey.
Howdy.
Howdy ho. Howdy ho. What's
For
up?
anyone that was around earlier, I was spicy. I got my meds in me. I'm not so spicy. So
Relax.
Lots of spice.
Yeah.
You're more nice than spice now?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. That works.
If I get a violation,
Chat, why
tell
do
me,
you-
Snarks.
You
Yeah.
got to buy... No, you're good.
If I get one.
Okay.
Because we know who it is.
No. So why do we think the U.S. is rolling back same-sex marriage rights? Like, where's this coming from?
Good question.
You know, I think what's interesting